When people want to make a claim about how important museums are in our culture and what a good job it is that they do, we sometimes hear it said that museums are our new churches. And you can see why people say that. They are places of reverence. Often you have to keep a relatively hushed voice. They have high ceilings, filtered light. But there's a deeper connection. And the connection is really that these are major centers of value. So just as the cathedrals and the churches in the great days of Christianity were obvious focal points of culture, they were the places that summed up what people really believed in, so too there is the claim that museums have assumed that role. They are where the most valuable intentions of society are to be found. Any surplus wealth generated by the capitalist economy is frequently summoned up and sucked in by museums. It's the most legitimate form of patronage, just in the same way as church architecture was. Now, I want to argue that the idea that museums are our new churches is a beautiful one, but the reality is they're not. They failed at their task. They do lots of things very well, and wonderful restaurants and splendid gift shops and all sorts of things. But at the deepest level, museums have failed. I want to argue art museums. And the reason they failed is they're so boring. And the reason why they're so boring is they refuse to tell us what art is for. And this isn't museums' fault. It's the fault of our culture. We have not, as a people, as a generational unit, been able to come up with convincing explanations of why art matters. There are perhaps three answers out there. The modernist response to the question of what art is for is that this is an illegitimate and vulgar question. To ask what something is means that you don't understand it, which means that you're stupid, which is why so often in museums the dominant feeling is one of puzzlement. The dominant feeling is that someone, somewhere, understands what a particular work means, but we are somehow puzzled. We've not been let into the charmed circle, but we're very good because we know what happened to Van Gogh. We know how everybody laughed, so we're not going to make that mistake. So we're going to stay silent. If we have doubts, we're going to keep those doubts very, very private, and we're not going to let on. But in our hearts, we're going to think, what on earth was that about? Very often. The other response to art is, and its meaning, is the idea that art is there for art's sake. The great rallying cry of the 19th century, art is not propaganda. There was a terrific movement in the 19th century, and it continues to this day, which is to say that art automatically becomes debased if it's trying to speak up for a certain vision of life. It very quickly, you're on a slippery slope, and at the bottom of that slope are two people, Hitler and Stalin. So you've got to be very careful that your art is not mistaken for propaganda. And the best way to do that is to say that it's just for art's sake. And if somebody comes up to you and asks you what it means or what you care about or how you think society should be arranged, if you have a political vision, if you care deeply about things, you don't give an answer, because you might end up, as I say, with Hitler or Stalin. So the field is then left. The only third candidate to coming up with an answer of what art is for is academia. And academia has lots of ideas about what art might be for. And it's for things like grading works of art according to the century in which they were painted, and the school in which the stylistic trends in works of art can be pinned down to. So it's essentially a kind of librarian's task that academics bring to bear on art. And they do a wonderful job of pigeonholing artists, movements, trends, and this explains why captions are the way they are. If you look at most captions, they bear with them the heritage of the academic tradition. They'll tell you where something was painted, its provenance, the sort of material used, etc., etc. And most of us stare dumbly and with some confusion at this thought. It seems very, very important, but actually if we take a step back, why does it matter that this painting was made in 1483 or that it's on oil on board or whatever it is? But anyway, we have this idea that this is incredibly important. Now, there's another candidate for explaining to us why art might matter, and it's a very neglected and taboo candidate, but I want to bring it out and describe it as the salvation, the possible salvation of art and museums, and that is religion. I speak as a secular person who has no interest in religion except for the lessons that it could be able to provide us in relation to works of art as to how art might fit more actively and more interestingly into our lives. Now, religions have absolutely no problem telling us what art is for. If you asked a Christian, what is art for? Art is for reminding us to live a little bit more like Jesus. Art is a sensory medium which should evoke for us the wisdom and virtue of Jesus Christ and make vivid to us his teachings. Now, balmy idea if you like, but a very interesting, clear message and moral. So, take Rembrandt's depiction of Jesus on the Sea of Galilee. For those of you who know Rembrandt's painting, it shows the sailors looking fierce and heroic in the face of the storm. Now, we all know that Christianity should teach us to be courageous in the face of our woes, but it takes a great artist like Rembrandt to make us feel that truth. So art is there to make us feel the great truths that we know as cliches, but we need reminding of. We're constantly told things like, be nice, love one another, but we don't know what that means until a great artist comes along and evokes for us really powerfully what love means, and so transforms us. So essentially, a tour through a church and an interaction with works of art in a church is supposed to be a method for returning us to what we truly believe, what we truly want of our society, and the best things about humanity. That's the point of a church. In a way, a balmy mission. How could one ever take anything from this? Well, my suggestion is that museums have a lot to learn from this. Museums have a lot to learn from the way that churches don't grade things by century. They don't grade things even by schools. They muddle everything up, and their only mission is try and be a bit more like Jesus. That's the mission. Now, how could we incorporate something of this into secular world? People, the immediate answer would be to say, well, we don't believe in anything, we don't have gods, so what are we supposed to have these temples to nothing? Well, we do have gods and we do have values. We don't have gods per se, but we have things we deeply believe in. We believe in certain virtues, we believe in kindness, we believe in family, we believe in love, we believe in nature, etc., etc. These are the things which our museums should have at their core. We don't need a new kind of art. We need a new framing device. We need galleries that will say, this is the gallery for love, this is the gallery for family, this is the gallery for nature. These are galleries with very specific missions, which are to bring to life the ideas that we most care about and to use art as a sensory medium, as propaganda for very good things. So that's an initial sketch of why I think museums have got it wrong and how, through certain lessons of religion, they might go in more fruitful directions. Thank you very much.